Hello, and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy episode number 65 for the week of, July 7th. Oh, wait, actually, no, this is actually not for July 7th. We're recording on July 7th, but this is actually for the week of July 9th, 2012. We're recording a few days early this week because many members of the podcast are going to San Diego Comic Convention. I am not. Also not going to the San Diego Comic Convention is...
Brock Sager.
But going to the San Diego Comic Convention is...
Charlie West.
And also Toby and Omar, who neither could be here tonight. But they will all be down to San Diego next week, so...
Well, there's that and the whole scheduling thing with your Walking Dead party.
That's true. We are having our Walking Dead number 100 party next week. Tuesday, 6 p.m. till we leave. Whenever that is, after midnight sometime.
To the midnight hour.
Well, because at midnight we'll be selling...
Moaning.
We'll be selling Walking Dead number 100. Still plenty of copies available for you to pre-order at comicsconspiracy.biz. So go ahead and check that out.
Have you noticed he's gotten better at plugging shit?
I try. So, three-man podcast this week, and although I thought initially we were going to talk like all Marvel stuff, but I guess we're going to drop AVX, and Brock wants to talk some Batman Earth 1, even though I haven't
we
read
could
it
talk AVX.
I got nothing
I
to
can
say.
always talk AVX for probably... This will probably be the least I'd have to say about an AVX issue, but I could talk about it.
Well, we can hit it up in a second. Let's... we shout out some Twitter questions here, so I get to... one's from Rory Starks. He's actually a regular customer of ours here. He's in pretty regularly. He asks, I've only read AVX and AVX Versus. Are there any other books from this event you guys recommend? I already said I liked the Secret Avengers arc with Marvel, although...
I was not a fan of it.
Although spoiler, they kill him at the end again, randomly, for no reason. I don't know what's up with that.
The reason is because they wanted to give Miss Marvel a reason to change her name.
Okay, I guess. But it was like...
I didn't say they had a good reason.
But it seems like, why bring Captain Marvel back for like 3 issues?
So they could do the big, he sacrificed himself. I have to carry on the... Yeah, whatever.
But it was good other than that. The ending made no sense to me.
To me, it just... Continuity-wise and everything else, it just didn't really match up. Like, I understand what they were trying to do, but you don't really, like... You haven't been reading that book at all.
No. I actually haven't touched any of the extra.
And you didn't really get the impression that the Phoenix ever took a side trip to Hala, and had a big brouhaha in Hala, and then came back to Earth, right?
The only thing in AVX that I remember going, what the hell is that, was when when everyone's in outer space, and they said, well, we took care of that. And it's like, well, what the F did you take care of?
That was that.
So obviously nothing important.
Yeah, I was not thrilled with that crossover.
I like the art. The Avengers stuff has all been fine.
The new Avengers stuff might actually start to come into play more now, since that's really been about a connection between the Phoenix and the Iron Fist.
And man, does that come out of nowhere in the main book? The Iron Fist stuff?
Which I get the impression in, I think it was the previous issue, that they are starting to bring that into the main book, but they're just now starting to bring that in. So I have a feeling that if they go where I think they're going with it, it's going to be the kind of thing that people are going to rush out and get the new Avengers issues now, because they're going to go, oops,
Well, were we talking a few weeks ago about how Uncanny X-Men has actually kind of fully gone in and explained that there's been other multiple Phoenixes before and all that? Were we talking about that on here?
Yeah, we were talking about it on here. All the X-Men crossovers, I get a little confused. It was probably Uncanny.
Well, it's one of those things where I feel some of the crossovers explain so much more of what's going on in the book. We're kind of getting this sort of scattershot look at the AVX world through the main title. This not totally unlike Grant Morrison's Final Crisis, where you're kind of jumping from point to point. But
if you're looking for just good reads that have to do with the AVX conflict,
skip Uncanny now. I must admit, maybe it was X-Men Legacy. I don't remember which one, because Uncanny has just been about...
X-Men Legacy has been pretty good.
Yeah.
Wolverine and the X-Men has been pretty good. The Avengers Academy one has been pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
I've read all the crossovers, and I mean, there's been particular issues of Uncanny that have been pretty good, but it's not like, as a whole, I would say.
I think it's just the last 2 or 3 issues, because that I haven't liked of Uncanny, because they've just been the Sinister. Like Mr. Sinister randomly opens up this.
They're bringing back up a story that was already going on in Uncanny and it's tying it in, so it's very hard to follow if you weren't following the previous story.
It's very Red Skies, which is a reference back to the old Crisis on Infinite Earths, where every book had a crossover. Some of the books crossover were, oh wow, the sky's red. That sure is weird. Anyway, let's go on with our story. Uncanny seemed very Red Skies.
Well, it is very that, but now that various members of the X-Men have aspects or part of the Phoenix Force in them, it's more sort of dealing with the new power level and that kind of stuff within the already established story.
I do find it funny that Iron Man, Thor, and Cap are completely not involved in the crossover, despite being 3 of the major players on the Avengers side.
That's because they have shit going on of their own stuff that's selling.
Yes. And the Avengers are somehow fighting Thanos over in at the same time over in Avengers Assembled. But
but that's not normal Marvel is it?
Yeah, it is. But yeah, Avengers Assembled is Marvel Universe. Mm-hmm. That's all going to be their big story next. Well, part of their big story next. But this is also like complaining about multiple books taking place at the same time that don't work with each other is a dumb argument. I mean, this is the way comics have always been, so I can't really bitch about that.
Well, since we are talking all about AVX, bottom line is you're reading the Verse and the Avengers Verse X-Men is pretty much the 2 that if you really want to follow the event, you really need to read and will enjoy reading.
Yeah.
There's little bits here and there that I can suggest which ones were good reads, but they're not necessary.
I actually got around, finally, read 6 and 7 today of the main Avengers vs. X-Men title. And 6, oh boy, with that art change, oh man,
it's
so helpful.
Book.
It is. And 6 was actually pretty decent. And 7 kind of just
fell flat.
Yeah.
Continued it. I just didn't. I was like, all right. I mean,
I could have gone with another issue, maybe even 2, of not making the Phoenix X-Men seem sinister.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of shifting gears on that way too fast for me.
Well,
and it just...
Well, at the end of 5, they're like, oh, and now we have the Phoenix 5, where they're 5 characters are now the Phoenix.
Yeah.
Okay. And then 6, it's like 10 days later, and the world's totally changed. What? Like, what happened? Like,
they Age of X'd it.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. But 6 was better.
Because you don't need, like... 6 was... I really, really enjoyed 6. 7, just... Unfortunately, it kind of... didn't progress things very much, right. And if anything, it just kind of went, okay, so these are the bad people inhabited with the Phoenix. These are the good people inhabited with the Phoenix. And evidently the guy who said no more Avengers doesn't want to treat... It's
Cyclops.
Just a little weird.
Yeah.
I really like the way they're getting rid of Emma to bring in Jean Grey. But they're not doing it right, just because she's not going to come back in real time.
Well, Emma's hooking up with Namor now, but there's always been a little bit of that.
Hey, Namor will hook up with...
Yeah, he will.
Yeah,
for a guy that hates human beings, man, he loves banging the human chicks.
Yeah. So 7 ends with Namor getting ready to destroy the Avengers. So that's kind of what they've been doing for every issue.
Hopefully it's a big wave, right?
Yep, it is.
Which, again, is part of what I didn't like about it is the last issue really kind of... was okay, the Phoenix is here. Maybe we were wrong issue. And then number 7's like, okay, we're just going to make it so Namor ruins everything with the help of Emma and magic.
You know, it's funny. During Civil War, I really got the feeling with Marvel when they were kind of building up to that prison in the negative zone. And there was a lot of stuff with this.
Yeah.
It feels like in this book... the world changes so dramatically in one issue that, like, all of a sudden they're like, all right, put them in the brig with the others. What do you mean the others? The others what? You've captured a bunch of Avengers? Like, the crossovers don't even really go into this.
Yeah.
Like, what brig? Where is this? What are you doing? How did you capture them? Who got captured?
It's one of those annoying things between these kind of books and crossovers and that kind of stuff is they don't want to give stuff away, and you can tell that they don't want to give stuff away in the crossover or what's going to be revealed in the next issue. Yet in certain cases they probably should have.
But telling me you captured D-Man and threw him in a cell in some unknown place, like, that doesn't matter. Like, I just don't. I feel like they're leaving so much out of the story.
Yeah.
And with 12 issues, you'd think they would have a lot of space to tell the stuff, but it's just
13.
Big, well, 0.
Let's
yeah,
count the
just
0.
Big, long stuff. Anyway, that's for AVX talk. There we go. I got another tweet here from David, who asks, an all Marvel episode. Well, may not be quite all Marvel, but close enough. Is the world ready for that much hate? Maybe, probably not. But the rest of his question is follows up. Why we don't hate Marvel? How about a little love? What is your favorite Marvel story? I mean, that's a hard question to answer because, and I think it bears repeating, and I had to repeat this so many times. None of us hate Marvel.
No.
Some of us hate current Marvel books, like Brock. Some of us hate current Marvel practices, like Brock. Some of them have just. I mean, I'm just
going to list my name.
Well, no.
Well, I'm just thinking. I wouldn't even single out Marvel there. I think Brock hates all current company within comic practices, at least of them two main.
Well, some people just straight up prefer DC to Marvel, like myself, probably like all three of us.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't hate Marvel. I don't hate the company to the point that. If I hated Marvel, like I couldn't work at the store. Right? I couldn't own the store.
Yeah, no, I mean, I couldn't. If I hated Marvel to the point, I couldn't read AVX.
I read like 40 Marvel books in the last few weeks, and I mean, I don't read the books I don't like, but I can at least deal with the rest of these. Yeah. So it's not a case of me hating any of this stuff. It's just I just don't prefer it. But my favorite Marvel story. I mean, there's so many good Marvel books throughout the years. Yeah. I couldn't even begin to list my top 20, but earlier, just a few minutes before we closed, we actually sold a copy of Kingdom Come, which, although not my favorite DC book, is clearly one of my favorite DC books, but the counter to that is Marvels, which was a 4-issue miniseries by Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross that came out around the same time, that I would easily consider one of my, again, maybe not my favorite, but one of my favorite Marvel books that have ever been published. And this Marvels was a look at sort of the 60s and early 70s of the Marvel Universe through the eyes of a photographer as he sees... Well, actually, no, it goes back to, doesn't it go back to him being as a kid in World War I? Or World War II and the creation of... Right, because the first book is the creation of the Human Torch, the original Human Torch in the 30s.
It's the look at the beginnings of key points in the Marvel Universe through the eyes of this character who...
Right. Up till the death of Gwen Stacy. That's about the end of... That's where it ends.
Well, both Kingdom Come and Marvels is told from a human perspective rather than from any particular hero's perspective. And that... It's always kind of worked really well for both those stories because you have these big, tremendous things going on and sort of this general sense where the character in those books sort of mirrors the reader's reaction. It's sort of like the shock of when Robin actually died in the book or when Gwen Stacy died. It was sort of the shock of, wait, this actually happened. They didn't shy away from it or...
Well, Marvel's done this before or done this with Frontline. The series that they had come out with Civil War and
they
Secret
tried.
Invasion.
Yeah,
they tried. There, a few of them fell short, but there was a couple of them that were actually really good, told from the human perspective. I mean, it's not something that's as great as Marvel's, but they have done it before.
Charlie, Brock, give us one of your favorite Marvel books. Could be anything. I mean,
I like Planet Hulk.
Cool.
I mean, it was really. I mean, basically, it's Gladiator, mixed with Hulk and outer space and a different planet, but I mean it was a really good story by Pack that just carried it through, and then like Marvel, World War Hulk didn't really hit as high a mark as Planet Hulk did, but
I loved World War Hulk. Still, that worked for me. No, for me it's actually a very sort of simple question to answer right now, but if you ask me next week, I'm sure I'll give you something different. Right now, the number one book that I kind of really want to go back and reread is Infinity Gauntlet because of all the Thanos hype and stuff going on right now. And, Yeah, I remember that was probably my introduction to like big event books where everybody get pulled in and yeah. So,
but I mean, if you want to talk good Marvel comics, you could say probably every Marvel comic published from 1961 to about 1978. You could say, the entire Claremont run on X-Men, Frank Miller's Daredevil.
Original Claremont run on X-Men.
Right. I mean, to me, all that stuff is so classic, whether it stands up today or not. You have to. It is what it is. You have to like it.
There's gems here and there.
And when you go modern day, there's still plenty of great books. There's still plenty of great books. So. Yeah. Actually, there was another question on here which I closed Twitter and I didn't have it, but it
was like, what the F is Guardians of the Galaxy?
It somehow got kind of deleted off my thing here. I don't know what happened to it, but someone else asked about Guardians of the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. Another, for a more recent Marvel book, one of my favorites that came out in the last few years.
Yeah. The Guardians of the Galaxy, that was around. That's a long. They've been around for. Since the 70s, right?
Yeah, the original team came out, I'm looking here, 1969. Mm-hmm. So you're very end of the 70s, or very end of the 60s, kind of that tail end of the Silver Age books. They were first appeared in, was it Marvel 2-in-1 here? Oh, no, Marvel Superheroes, number 18. They were sort of like this futuristic team, kind of like the futuristic Avengers. They're from the 31st century, going around doing their thing, so... Including one of my favorite characters of all time, Major Vance Astro, the 31st century alternate reality version of Vance Astrovic, later known as Marvel Boy for the New Warriors. So there you go. He also bummed around. Vance Astrovic bummed around with Thing in Thing's solo series for a number of years before then becoming Marvel Boy and later Justice. There you go. He was in the Avengers under the Kurt Busiek run. So, Major Vance. I keep saying Vance Astro. That's Astro. Like his.
And he
alternate
came
version.
Back in the last run of the Guardians,
right?
Which was amazing.
And I'm assuming that's him at the very end of Avengers Assemble number 4, kind of leading back. So
I don't know. I didn't read it.
It looks like him. Looks like a different version of him though. Charlie 27, big guy. That guy's cool. Gun. Yeah, that guy's cool. Who else is there? Yondu. Yeah. Bunch of weird
I've never
teams.
actually read all the old Guardians of the Galaxy.
I've read some of the old stuff, and I read most of the 90s series when they kind of brought them back. It was fun stuff.
I got a lot of issues ready to be bound.
Nice.
So I can get a nice trade going for that.
But then in the more recent version, which is the version that's probably going to be what shows up in the movie, it's a bit of a different group. Drax the Destroyer, who comes from... actually, the Infinity Gauntlet and all the Jim Starlin Thanos stuff. He's one of those guys. Can't forget about Groot and Rocket Raccoon, one of the best duos in comic history. Groot, the big giant tree. Rocket Raccoon is...
Well, he's sometimes a big giant tree. Sometimes he's a twig.
Sure. Rocket Raccoon is exactly what you think he is. He's a raccoon with guns. How can you go wrong with that? Bug, who's from the old ROM series. Cosmo the dog, who's badass. So, yeah.
Who's permanently in one of those dog cone things. But it works.
Friends with Nova. So what Guardians of the Galaxy movie means...
You forgot
means we
Gamora.
might... Oh, Gamora's in there, too. I'm looking here. Major Victory, Mantis, Moondragon, Jack Flag, Star-Lord. Basically, characters no one has ever heard of unless you've read comics.
Like, if you're liking what we're talking about or interested in Guardians, just pick up the Annihilation Conquest stuff, and then just read through it.
Guardians of the Galaxy is like Marvel's Star Wars.
Yeah,
it's their big outer space ragtag group of heroes going around saving the galaxy. That's
it's fucking awesome.
It is. It's one of my favorite books.
If that's one of the things. Like I'm not buying Marvel right now. I kind of did that, but this thing coming out with Marvel, now if they have Guardians, I'm going to be so torn because this is a franchise that I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah.
So
is the entire Annihilation stuff still in print?
I don't know. Most of it should be. All the Nova and Guardians of the Galaxy stuff started from a series called Annihilation. There's Annihilation Conquest, Realm of Kings, War of Kings, and Thanos Imperative.
Yeah.
These are the 5 major story arcs involving all their Marvel space characters that were mostly done by Dan Abnett and Annie Lanning, who were 2 of my favorite creators, who did a long run in Legion of Superheroes. Now they're doing Hypernaturals for Boom Studios, so I can't recommend that stuff high enough. So, very good. So yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy. Possibly the new movie we'll see in 2014. That's what we're being told.
I don't know. Ever since Star Trek, guys dig green chicks. So
hey, Gamora, man. We're dealing with, but continuing on with Marvel, and Brock, you mentioned Marvel Now.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you just give us your what is Marvel Now?
It's not a reboot.
It's not a reboot.
It's not a relaunch. It's not even a rejiggering.
It's a rejiggering.
It is?
It's a rejiggering. I'll give you that. How about that?
Okay. It's Marvel Rejigger Now. How am I going to spin it? X-Men is becoming astonishing.
Okay. Let's start.
I know
at the
Avengers
here.
is becoming uncanny.
Let's start at the beginning here.
You have it up there.
Back in the early 2000s, Marvel did an event called Avengers Disassembled, where they basically blew up the Avengers, literally killing a whole bunch of members. The Scarlet Witch went crazy. There's a book called House of M, where she made there being no more mutants on Earth. And then that led to a bunch of, very few mutants on Earth. That led to, all. So for years, we've had this sort of post-House of M, post-Avengers Disassembled universe for Marvel. They've said like 4 times, this is the book that ends the Disassembled, This is the book that finally changes things. They did this. They said this after Civil War. They said this after Fear Itself. They said this after Secret Invasion. Now they're saying it again after Avengers vs. X-Men. This is the wrap-up of the whole Disassembled universe. So, whatever. Okay, sure. I guess we're going to do it this
AVX
time.
ends with Scarlet Witch sitting there and one bubble saying, reset the universe or some shit, I don't know. I think fans are going to start
No.
throwing rocks through windows.
No.
So what Marvel has come out and said now, much in whether they admit it or not, much in the line of what DC did a few years last year in rebooting their entire universe. Marvel's doing a not so severe, but they are going to relaunch and renumber 22 books towards the end of the year from, I believe, October to February, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's not the first week in October. It's the second week in October.
So I think it's 21, actually. No.
Okay, like one book a week, where they're going to take their titles that are either ongoing, such as Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, I'm assuming the X-Men titles, all the Avengers titles, and renumbering them back to number 1, relaunching with a completely new creative team. So it's not like Avengers where they relaunched with just the same people doing them. Brian Michael Bendis, who has basically written all the Avengers books for almost a decade, he's leaving. He's joining the X-Men titles. Rick Remender, who does X-Force, is jumping on an Uncanny Avengers, which is basically a team-up book between the Avengers and the X-Men. What's happened with the X-Men throughout the years in Marvel since about the mid-'90s, they've really been kind of segregated to their own section of the Marvel Universe and have not been pivotal parts of major events. They've been there, but they tend to kind of have X-Men events and Marvel events, and they kind of stick to their own universe and only go over from time to time. This is seeming like the end of AVX is going to be, and I guess this is kind of spoilers for the end of AVX. I'm assuming they all win or they all survive because they're all here. The X-Men are going to become much more integrated into the Marvel Universe. So we're going to have the Avengers having a lot of X-Men on there, the X-Men maybe having Avengers on the team. I don't know. And then there's a book called Uncanny Avengers, which is actually straight up 50% X-Men, 50% Avengers. And kind of like this is going to be the group that sort of paves the way between mutants and humans. And at the same time, they're taking the X-Men titles and they're sort of, according to these articles that were published this week, they're trying to move away from the X-Men just fighting about survival. So they're not going to have another group of people that want to get rid of the mutant gene, and another group of enemies that are trying to wipe out all the mutants. They're going to they're going to have X-Men fighting bank robbers and stuff, which to me sounds interesting.
So basically this fits in with the Cyclops thing where we're not fighting for survival. I have to figure out what's going on with Jean.
Right.
Yeah, okay, just check.
So the main Avengers titles are now going to be written by Jonathan Hickman, who's going to be writing Avengers and New Avengers. Who I love Jonathan Hickman.
Yeah.
He's a great writer. He's been doing Fantastic Four for a few years now, and this is him leaving it,
which is sad. But
so Avengers. So this is the new Avengers team, and it's actually going to be more than this because they're going to blow these teams up to as many people as they want. It is Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk, Thor, Jean Grey from the 1960s. We'll get to that in a second. This new Nova. I believe Cable. This looks like Cable. Is this Cable?
I know Cable is in some of the Marvel Now images,
right.
So it's probably Cable.
Like it looks like Cable, but it's kind of like a weird version of Cable. Iron Man, Invisible Woman, Nick Fury, or I'm sorry, not Nick Fury. Well, Nick Fury Jr., Kid Nick Fury, Black Nick Fury, right? Who's in the Marvel universe?
Fucking racist.
I'm not racist. He's black.
And Jay Jr.
Well, what's his name? Whatever his name is.
New Jersey Jr.
Cyclops, Wolverine, Captain America, and motherfucking Rocket Raccoon. Oh man! So they're really just like.
Well, I don't. Is that image isn't an Avenger? It's just an image with a bunch of characters on it. It wasn't slated for. I think this is just a teaser for what's to come. Like it's one character from each thing that's appearing.
Is it? I thought this was supposed to be like the Avengers team.
No, it's not the team.
I don't think so.
It's like this is a teaser for this is
Marvel Now.
Yeah, this is Marvel Now. This is Spider-Man Marvel Now. This is Hulk Marvel Now. This is.
Okay, I kind of took this to be like this was going to be a sort of like this. The Avengers is literally like the Justice League now. It's everyone in the Marvel universe.
It's the Justice League International because Groot replaces what's his name? Or sorry, Rocket Raccoon.
Nort.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
not
for
Nort,
me,
the short white guy.
Oh, it's a better replacement for Nort since he's a dog.
and I mean, for all we know, this could end up being an actual team just because they're not really saying much beyond what we've already covered about them launching one book a week for 21 weeks. And I mean, it's an interesting way to try and bring in new readership. It's definitely not as...
Well, we at least have the team for the Uncanny Avengers, which is Thor, Scarlet Witch, Captain America, Wolverine, Rogue, and Havoc. So at least...
So that's what?
3 and 3.
What's
Half
Havoc
the main
doing right
and the
now?
blue team?
Don't know.
Havoc was with doing a lot of space stuff. It was in the...
Well, yeah, but didn't he come back from leading the Starjammers, or is he still...
Yeah, he was supposed to come back. He came back with an X-Men Legacy before AVX. There was that big, huge ship that was way too big, and somehow they...
I don't know. I lost complete track of him. Other than like Rogue's over at Wolverine School and now just joined the AVX battle, basically.
So I'm assuming that means does it mean the end? Well, I guess it doesn't mean the end of Wolverine and the X-Men because he can be in 12 teams if he wants. So, but
well, that's the thing that I'm actually most curious about in terms of this relaunching is there's certain books going on right now, like Daredevil, for instance, Punisher, for instance. They just relaunched Incredible Hulk.
But they just relaunched Cap, Thor, and Iron Man, too.
Exactly.
And those are all getting confirmed, new number ones.
And that's where I'm kind of wondering, does that mean they're going to do what DC did and try to wrap up? Like, some of the wrap-up is coming because we already knew that Brubaker was leaving Cap. And
now we know why. Right.
We already knew that... Hickman was leaving Fantastic Four. We already knew... God, I hate it when my mind starts blanking names. But who's doing Iron Man right now?
Matt Fraction.
Fraction was leaving Iron Man. I mean, a lot of these long runs were ending, and they made it clear that they were going to be wrapping those up. But
now we know why they're all ending.
I'm really curious about stuff like the Incredible Hulk that just got a relaunch, that they kind of have a specific sort of story arc they're going on.
Well, the rumor for Hulk, at least, is that it's going to become Hulk and the Smash Brothers or whatever the hell this thing is. I can't remember what they call it.
Basically renaming it Hulk and the Agents of Smash.
Agents of Smash, the worst name.
With the cartoon that's coming out.
It's the worst name.
Is that to kind of be like Frankenstein and the Agents of Shade?
Not as good.
Sort of. But, yeah, I'm...
Hulk is so bad.
Really?
Hulk is so bad.
Really? All of this is just spin.
But no,
spin.
okay.
If they can bring out some good new Marvel books and get me excited about some of these franchises like Avengers and X-Men, I'm all for it. It's just all about the writing, the art, and if they can...
So I've said this on the podcast 100 times. I'll say it again. I have almost complete collection of Avengers from number 1. Well, like number 4 or whatever. The first one I have. I mean, I love the Avengers. I've always loved the Avengers. Bendis, for me, ruined the Avengers. I could never deal with new Avengers. As far as like owning and actually collecting, and this is what I love. I mean, I like the brown suit Avengers more, the brown bomber jacket Avengers from the 90s that are awful and terrible. But that felt like the Avengers to me, at least to some degree. So,
well, it's the new Avengers had too much of the Ultimates feel to it in the beginning, and then it wasn't, and then it just kept going.
Where I want to say, I want to buy an Avengers comic book. I really do. And Jonathan Hickman writing the Avengers, that may be the key. Mm-hmm. That may be it, because he's one of my guys at Marvel, and I love him. And when Marvel releases a Hickman full FF omnibus, I'm there day one, because I was kicking myself for not buying it. Same with Mark Waid on Daredevil. I mean, I was so disappointed by the end of Daredevil. Again, one I've been collecting almost the entire time I've been collecting comics. Before they relaunched it, I was like, this is just so bad. I'm out. And then Mark Waid comes around, and it's awesome. So I'm like, of course I stopped at the wrong time. So I want to buy these books.
Well, for me, when it comes to Bendis' Avengers stuff, when he first launched, did Avengers Disassembled, I enjoyed that. When he first launched New Avengers, I was enjoying it immensely, and it kind of felt like love or hate what Bendis does. He's got a great run on Daredevil. He's got at least a great early run on Ultimate Spider-Man. You can kind of argue whether or not that's still worth collecting or not. I even argue with myself over that. So
I tried to read. I read the 2 issues of Spider-Man, the Spider-Man Ultimate Spider-Man crossover. Oh boy, it was bad.
I enjoyed it.
Oh, I couldn't.
Well, I think
rough.
I think for Bendis, it's. I mean, I came in to a lot of these Bendis titles halfway through, so I came in and I'm backtracking, so I want to go read the Bendis Daredevil, which I haven't read. But reading the New Avengers Bendis and then reading a couple other titles, it really, he's stretched way too thin. It's keep him on one book.
Well,
and he normally can hit it out of the park every time. But once you start letting him do a couple different titles all at once is when it really, really starts to just fall short.
I actually think what really hurt Bendis's run basically since he took over Avengers had to do with the fact that when it first started, it felt like another run like the Daredevil and stuff where he was building and he knew where he was going. And then the events just started rolling out one after another. And it kind of led to, at least for me, the sort of shell shock of none of these books have been stable enough to really have a good unifying story through them. They don't really... They feel like they're cannon fodder between events, and then they use the book to build up the events, and then it's cannon fodder again till the next event. And I can kind of hardly blame him because he's writing books that are so central to all of these events they've done. It's kind of hard not to rejigger it every year, as it were.
Well, one thing that was in this article, although a lot of this was on Comic Book Resources with Alex Alonso and Tom Brevoort, who are two of the head editors.
I haven't gotten a chance to read the new one. So
they had an interesting comment that they don't want to say this is like a relaunch. They're saying, again, using the TV themes that they've used a lot, this is kind of like the start of a new season. That from Disassembled to AVX was a season.
Holy crap.
Where you had a 10-year period where you sort of had this one specific kind of line to follow from event to event. and now this is the next season.
So this is like what the 3 seasons where we wanted to get Alana the fuck out of Smallville.
But my problem comes with they've said this at the end of every event. Fear itself is going to be the end of this. Secret Invasion is going to be the end of this. Civil War is going to be the end of this. They've said it every time.
And they're
so
also,
I just don't buy
advertising this war thing.
Oh, that's Punisher.
Punisher.
Punisher War Journal. That's just a new book that's coming out. It has nothing to do with anything.
That has nothing to do with it.
It's from what I gather, is Punisher kills the Marvel Universe, but with a longer format to tell it rather than a one shot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, Marvel Next, as well as a lot of other stuff, or Marvel Now, whatever, will be at San Diego Comic-Con this upcoming week.
Yeah,
so
a lot more information is going to come out.
Yeah.
So have more.
Yeah, we'll have
because that's the thing. Like you said, it's like you want to get back to these titles, and for me, it's like if they have another Guardians book, and it's
going to be by Brian Michael Bendis and Jeff Loeb.
Oh God,
already confirmed.
Oh my God, I can't. I
read the first issue of Wolverine where they bring back Sabretooth.
Why?
The Jeff Loeb one this week.
Well, supposedly they never actually killed Sabretooth.
There's like 50,000 Sabretooth clones running around now or something.
Evidently.
It was bad. I'm sorry. It was bad.
I didn't mind it per se, but I do feel like I missed something since I didn't read the other Loeb.
Stupid Romulus.
Yeah.
I hate Romulus. Romulus is the worst character that's ever been created. I don't even know what he is. He's just some dumb Wolverine guy that's been like in the background of Wolverine's entire life, right?
So I missed his introduction and all that.
I didn't read any of it.
When I was reading that, I didn't go back to confirm, but I know in Wolverine the End he had sort of a brother that was sort of in the background his entire life. Was that Romulus?
I don't think so. All this comes from Wolverine Origins, which was a bad book.
Well, yeah, but Wolverine the End was pretty much the end of. It was Wolverine Origins, the end, basically.
Right.
So I was just wondering if they brought his brother into the normal continuity as Romulus, since it kind of seemed that way.
No idea.
But, yeah.
It was bad. All right.
Anybody who knows that, feel free to tweet me just so I can have a little more context.
I tried to read the Romulus Wikipedia entry, and I was like, no, this is awful. Because I think it was when they mentioned the first X-Men, right? This is new miniseries coming out by Christos Gage. Someone asked him, like in this interview, like, is this going to deal with Romulus? And he was like, no, we're just going to deal with the stuff people know about. And we're going to completely ignore all this Romulus stuff because it's dumb. So there you go.
Well, I got an easy way to fix Romulus. Romulus is just do the Fight Club, right? Romulus is the side that erases Wolverine's memory.
Sure.
Right? It's his Tyler Durden.
All right, let's talk
about... I could see doing something like that. It would be very similar to like the Sentry and that. Yeah, I'm not sure they could do that.
All right, let's talk about something else here.
Batman Earth 1.
Oh, you want to talk about Batman Earth 1? Okay, yeah, talk about that for a minute. That's fine.
How can you not? It's Johns and Frank.
I didn't read it yet, so I don't have anything to say.
What? It's Johns.
Okay, it's great then. It's the best comic that's been published.
You have a hard on for Johns and Morrison. If it comes out, it's great.
You were correct.
That's all you need to know.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear.
Charlie, you go.
Jeff Johns can do no wrong. I'm actually agreeing with.
There you go.
Jesus.
With Ryan on this one.
Can we talk about Batman Earth 1, please?
Sure.
What? You're the one that brought up Jeff Johns. I'll just talk about him for the next hour.
Make it quick. We have other bad stuff to talk about.
Oh, okay. No, I plowed through it right before the show.
That's great.
It's amazing. I think you could definitely see improvement in Johns' kind of origin storytelling from, the Green Lantern Secret Origin, Superman Secret Origin, kind of this retelling.
Well, this, for me, was sort of Superman Secret Origin still tried to match up with Superman, and Green Lantern Secret Origin was still, these weren't outside general continuity. This was just almost a new perspective of an origin that we all already knew.
Yeah.
This, while still a Batman origin, this isn't Batman from Batman comics or anything like that. This is completely separate. It's got a whole different take on Alfred, whole different take on Jim Gordon, whole different
Bullock.
Yeah, and
Penguin.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Cool. Yeah. No, really, I can't recommend those Earth 1 titles higher. They're just so good. I
thought you didn't like Superman.
I like Superman. It was the ending that was a little off because I think I think that they didn't, that the story was going to be, we were going to get more of a story, but they didn't put it all in that one, and so that it's going to be in the next one. Mm-hmm. Same thing with this. This is you read this and it leaves it completely open for the next one.
It's continued. It's pretty obvious that they intend to continue this line of Earth 1 books where you're going to have a Batman Volume 2 as long as they keep selling. And if this is any indication, I'm completely fine with that. If they could put them out every 6 months, I'd be happy. If they could put them out once a year, I'd be happy. Just don't make me wait years between, please. But I will say this. Anybody who did pick up Batman Earth 1, if you haven't picked up the Superman Secret Origin that's by the same team, do yourself a favor and pick that up. And if you can find the deluxe size version of it, pick that up because it's a phenomenally great book as well. And the art in there completely blew me away because they definitely went with the Christopher Reeve look for Superman in that book. And if you love those old Superman movies, you'll hear Christopher Reeve's voice in it. That's a fantastic book.
I agree. Let's talk about a new movie.
Oh, yeah.
Movie that came out last week. Or the beginning of this week. Movie called Amazing Spider-Man by Sony, by Marvel Comics. It was a
by Sony
relaunch of the Spider-Man franchise. No longer under Sam Raimi. Now by Mark Webb.
Which at least he has the right name for it.
Yeah. When the movie ended, my girlfriend turns to me. She's like, "The guy that directed this, his name is Webb." I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Man, that's bad." So this movie, much in the way of Prometheus, has kind of been polarizing among fans and among members of the Comic Conspiracy podcast. It basically is a story of Spider-Man getting his powers, spoiler alert, death of Uncle Ben. And
oh my God, Uncle Ben is dead.
Dies? Yeah, and
Peter, say it isn't so.
Peter Parker Spider-Man goes up against the Lizard, defeats him, and there you go. But we'll spoil the whole movie. So if you don't want to listen, don't listen. But there's nothing to really spoil.
By more current day Lizard than old school Lizard.
By no day Lizard than old school Lizard. But we'll get to that.
Well, I'm just saying that, like, the Lizard as he exists currently in, like, Amazing Spider-Man comes across as very much like the Lizard from the movie.
Yeah.
I disagree. But,
Are you reading Amazing Spider-Man?
I am.
No?
Yeah.
Are you caught up?
I am. I've read the most current issue.
Okay.
Yeah. But we'll get to this. So, I mean, I'm just going to start. I like every piece of crap that's ever been put on film, and I didn't like this movie. I'm in the minority among people I've talked to, but I've definitely seen some people that really. I mean, this is a very polarizing film. I mean, I've had people tell me that this is the single. Kurt Busiek earlier published on Twitter that this was the best superhero movie that's ever been made.
I wouldn't go that far.
To me, it was the most. Let me see how can I word this properly. It's the worst thing a movie can be, and that is boring. Because if you're a bad movie, you can at least make fun of it. You can at least laugh at it. To me, this movie was boring. This movie was boring on the level of Twilight being boring. There was little...
I don't know. Stop bringing in Twilight. I've never watched it.
Okay.
Charlie, have you watched Twilight?
Nope, I've avoided it.
You're the loser that watched Twilight. Don't bring it up.
I'm not saying
I'm trying to protect you here.
It's a bad movie. Twilight, that is. This movie isn't awful. All right? This is not the worst movie ever made.
What is the worst movie ever made?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you because I've probably never seen it. I love every piece of crap that's ever been put on film. I love Green Lantern. All right? This, to me, I was bored senseless. And everyone's going to have to say, I just want to get my initial thoughts out, and then you guys can all counter. If Avengers was a 10 in the action department and Batman was a 10 in the drama department for superhero films, right? The action in this movie gets like maybe a 5 and the drama gets like maybe a 3. I just felt one scene I actually liked in the whole movie that I was like, that was awesome. And we'll talk about that in a few. But everything else I was like, man, this movie is really, really boring. Now, go ahead. Tell us your initial thoughts, and then we'll talk more specifics. Because you're the counter to me, Brock. So go ahead.
Well, I saw it on a matinee show on Thursday, so I saw it before you did.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good movie. It wasn't. It didn't wow me like Avengers. It didn't wow me like Dark Knight. But I walked out of that film going, okay, it was a good movie. I mean, there's definitely some things that, probably could be worked on. There's some things that, I kind of was a little weirded out by the fact that, the lizard looked like Ambush Bug. But overall, I thought it was a fair movie. I mean, a lot of the audience that I watched it with didn't seem to be the geek culture crowd. It was more along the lines of parents had brought in their kids, and the annoying family behind me. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it evoked a lot of emotion out of people. I mean, there was times where, like, people were sniffling because they were tearing up and stuff like that in this movie.
All right. I'll believe that.
But it's, because it does address things. I mean, Uncle Ben dying in this, we didn't have this kind of long, drawn-out talking about it. He died.
Sure.
Right? I mean, it was boom, he's dead, he's gone. It's, this movie basically, I think, suffered from the fact that it was kind of too early to do a relaunch or a relaunch of it. So it felt as if the movie did cut corners saying, well, people already know.
But then why didn't they just put the origin in the trailer like Incredible Hulk and just go with an adventure? Because I saw everything in this movie 10 years ago in Spider-Man number 1, and I saw it better.
Because this is the thing, is what they were doing was they were trying to get rid of Spider-Man 3.
Spider-Man 3 doesn't ruin 1 and 2.
And even then, I don't think they... See, the problem with saying Spider-Man 3 killed the other franchise is for a very long time after Spider-Man 3. Even when Spider-Man 3 was still in the theaters, Spider-Man 4 was greenlit.
Yeah.
There was no question whether or not they could make a Spider-Man 4. It was
Sam Raimi that killed it, not the movie itself. Because he didn't want to come back. And then so they were like, well, let's go in a different direction.
And then there started to be talk about how Tobey wasn't interested in coming back. And they just kind of went, you know what? We need to get a new Spider-Man movie on the books going, or we're going to lose the rights.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing as look at the Batman franchise. I mean, Joel Neon Schumacher ruined those last 2 films. So when Batman was, reborn with Begins, I mean, it had enough time that passed, and Nolan took it in a completely different direction. Where Webb was trying to do that, but I think he kept a hold of, people have seen this, so recently. And people like the first and second film so much, so it's still going to be fresh in their minds. But the thing is you're wanting to tell a new story, you're wanting to start the new franchise, you still have to go through the telling of the origin. You still have to go through the telling of, Batman Begins, we still saw Batman don the cowl. So it's...
While Batman Begins may have been slow, it was never boring. Well, and I think that's a distinction that I need to make.
That's sort of an interesting point for this movie versus Batman, because don't get me wrong, I loved Batman Begins. Batman Begins and the first Spider-Man movie are kind of one of those movies where people who know me understand that I love those movies. Had my slight little issues with them. And in both cases, like Spider-Man 2 and Dark Knight, they kind of like fixed my little issues. Mm-hmm. So I was perfectly content by the second movies. And where I'm going with this is I remember with Batman Begins, people at the theater, when we went to go see it at that preview showing, I remember were complaining that it took him so long to don the bat suit, and
it's like an
pretty
hour.
Much said they were bored in the beginning because they wanted to go see a Batman movie. Mm-hmm. And to me, I'm like, well, if you guys don't know what a good movie is, I can't help you. But that's...
I think it's a great comparison, because I think Batman Begins did it perfectly, and this movie bored me to tears.
Well, they tried. I mean, they tried to give...
But hold on. But I think in the case with this, we have literally seen the exact same scenes 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We never saw this in Batman. We never actually saw him training, getting the cowl, starting. There was never a movie that did that. No. So this really was fresh, despite being him not being Batman. This is something different.
Now, the way they did the telling of the origin was very different in this movie.
Sure.
I mean, they kind of still did a semi-homage to the whole wrestling thing, but they avoided that whole thing.
Well, this was very Ultimate Spider-Man as opposed to Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, and for me,
he was hip cool, not this or hip nerd dork, not actual nerd dork.
This is actually something I find kind of weird in terms of the Batman comparison. In the Batman movies, I find it odd that God, my brain is just dying on names today. But the guy who plays Batman, Christian Bale. There we go.
I was like,
stupid. My brain. So Christian Bale, I've never really heard people talk about how great his performance was. Everybody talks about Michael Caine. Everybody talks about everybody surrounding him in that movie. But very few people talk about him.
I love Christian Bale. He was awesome. Like
I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm just saying that I find it interesting that everybody talks about, like, Aaron Eckhart as Two-Face. Everybody talks about Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox.
Well, I think you just expect him to be good because he's Batman and he's awesome.
The thing I find interesting about it is for Amazing Spider-Man, I feel it's almost the exact opposite. The most complimentary stuff I hear tends to be
for Andrew Garfield
and Emma Stone. Emma Stone. Like, those are the two people that people feel stood out in Amazing
Emma
Spider-Man.
Stone nailed Gwen Stacy. Yeah. I mean, the costume designer did a phenomenal job keeping true to that 70s Gwen Stacy feel and yet making it a modern-looking character.
Well, I mean, I think... Okay, I'm looking at their cast list here, right? No, there were no bad actors in this movie.
No, all of the actors in this film played the roles perfectly. They did a phenomenal job. You know, they brought their own.
They were all fine. Everyone did a good job. There was no bad acting in this movie.
No, I'm not saying there was. I'm just saying that I find it interesting that what stands out is very different.
Yeah. To me, it was purely the pacing and the plot was so dull. And like I said, if we hadn't seen this in the first movie already, almost scene for scene in so many of these different scenes, maybe it would have been more exciting, but it was done better a decade ago.
Well, here's something I'm actually curious to see how you felt about this and how Brock felt about this.
Okay.
I found it actually a very interesting sort of comparison in terms of the stages of grieving and everything, especially the way he kept coming home more and more beat up and more like he was punishing himself.
See, this is where I start to get into like the Twilight phase. Like it just felt replace like Dopey Love Story with Dopey Love Story and some, you know, action scenes and it was like I said, it was fine. But I think here's the thing. And people are like, "Oh, you just hate Marvel." Again, Iron Man, fucking amazing. Iron Man 2, really good. Incredible Hulk, really good. Thor and Captain America, fucking amazing. Avengers, possibly the best superhero movie ever made. So this is not a Marvel thing, right?
No.
The Amazing Spider-Man 1 or Spider-Man 1 and 2, really, I mean, some of my favorite movies of all time. Absolutely amazing. Love them. To me, this didn't bring... Maybe it's just Batman and Avengers have ruined all movies for me.
No,
it needs to crank it up. There needed to be something else.
You had tweeted right after you watched the movie. You had tweeted that this was no X-Men First Class.
It wasn't.
And you I know you said you went into this with no expectations.
I really did.
But I think you did go in with a slight expectation in the sense of if you're automatically comparing it to a franchise that has 4 movies that is come out in about the same amount of time that's from Marvel, and you're like, well, it wasn't an X-Men First Class.
Well, I think you have the case of Spider-Man and X-Men come out, and they're both like, wow, this is amazing. As a comic book fan, these are incredible movies, right?
And then 2 take it up a notch.
And then 2 comes out, and you're like, oh my God, this is so much better. Now I see more of the flaws in the first one. I still really like them to this day for what they are. I mean, the things Spider-Man and X-Men did for just comic book movies in general. I mean, X-Men is the start of the modern comic book movie. Everything owes it to that. And then 3 on both of those just tank the series, right? So we have very parallel scenarios between the 3 movies. But now we have X-Men First Class and Spider-Man. I go in with 0 expectations, not interested in either of them. And X-Men First Class blows me away.
See, the thing
way
is
up high.
X-Men First Class came out last year.
Right.
And it came out, and it wasn't a relaunch. It was a prequel, so to speak.
I mean, I was excited when we walked into the theater. I was like, cool, new Spider-Man movie. All right. I didn't smile. I take that back. I smiled once.
Yeah, we all know when you smiled.
I laughed once.
It was a Stan Lee cameo.
That's
when we all smiled. We all laughed. We were all little fanboys. I was so happy that Mark Webb didn't let him say anything.
But every other scene, I'm just like, oh, it's dragging. And the fight scenes were like, oh, okay. Well, this is a fight scene, I guess. I've seen this. I've seen 1,000 times this in every movie I've ever seen. And then I have to just throw this out here. The scene with all the cranes at the very end of the movie, and for those that haven't seen the movie, if you want to know what I'm talking about, Spider-Man rescues a guy early on, or rescues a kid of a guy early on in the movie. And later in the movie, Spider-Man's trying to get to Osborn Tower, and he basically has to go across all of New York. Which I must say, me and Charlie were talking about this earlier. They never say the word New York once in this movie, do they?
Not that I can remember.
It feels like he's living in an empty city.
No, they say Manhattan.
Do they?
They say, I think they said Manhattan.
If they did, I didn't catch it. It feels like he's living in an empty city. There's none of the.
There was none of the thing I think they were going for in that crane scene was they were going for the scene with the subway car from the Spider-Man 2 film where he saves them and he's about to fall and everyone grabs him, and despite the fact that his mask's off, they basically carry him in and set him down and help Spider-Man out. I mean, that's what the whole thing is it's the paying it forward. It's the being nice.
Sure. But this movie feels empty. And then there's one guy who he had saved his kid earlier in the movie after Spider-Man was shot in this scene. He's trying to get to Osborn Tower. And for some reason, he can't just swing from building to building like he always does. It's not clear to me why he doesn't just swing. He's like swinging to a building and then climbing up the side and then swinging. Like, I'm like, what? Why didn't you just swing from building to building?
In general, in this movie, the swinging was
non-realistic in the sense of
he was non-existent. No, my problem in it.
Every time
he's not a pro.
Every time he tried to sort of use swinging, he was mirrored against buses or
that was the thing with the swinging. I was like, for once it felt real. In the Raimi ones, it was like we got the funny thing of, okay, I jump off a thing and I shoot it and I fall.
And then we're done. I don't want Spider-Rookie. I want Spider-Man.
But the thing is, it's the first film. You have to give it credit for the first film. I mean, Batman fucks up in Batman Begins.
Yeah,
it's not like he's this ultimate.
But as it goes, but by the end, he should know how to use his fucking web shooter. Well, anyway, so he's like climbing up the building.
Really?
He's climbing up these buildings, and I did like that they have the web shooters. That was good.
Yeah,
the web shooters are fucking awesome.
He's climbing up this building, and this guy sees him on the news, and he's like, "Oh, I'm a crane operator." For some reason, Spider-Man can't swing from building to building like he has for 50 years. So I'm going to take...
Because he hasn't been doing it for 50 years.
I'm going to take my crane, and for some reason, there's 9,000 cranes.
Because this is... I'm done.
No, I'm done. No, it's so bad.
Dude, he's bad. Okay, this is the problem. No, this is the problem I had with Green Lantern. Was Hal Jordan didn't know what the fuck he was doing with that Green Lantern ring.
Until the end?
Hold on. Didn't know what he wanted to do.
Spider-Man didn't know what he was doing.
He goes up against Hector Hammond, which is supposed to be this weak little character.
We're not talking about Green Lantern.
Hold on. Then he goes up against Parallax, right? It doesn't make it. The jump doesn't make any sense. It goes from weak little individual to phenomenal cosmic powers guy.
It's fine.
The jump doesn't work.
We're not talking
Your
Green Lantern.
analogy about him swinging, he needs to learn. He's not going to know automatically.
We're not talking about Green Lantern here, okay? We're talking about Spider-Man.
We're done.
So this
done
guy...
with the crane. Move on.
So this guy...
No, we're done with the crane. We're done.
So this guy sees Spider-Man on the news, and he's like, hey, I'm randomly a crane operator for this construction company. I'm going to call my 20 other buddies at midnight on a random day and get them to somehow get to their cranes to everyone in New York City in this straight line has these cranes that can extend out over the city's major parkway that goes directly to Osborne Tower, so he can swing from crane to crane, yet he somehow can't swing from building to building. And also there's a crane apparently on the top of every building in New York City, a construction crane. And so they all put their cranes out over the city, and Peter Parker's like, oh, cranes, I should swing on these and get to Osborne Tower. It was the worst scene in the movie, and it made me I've never walked out of a movie. I was at the edge. It was the worst part of the movie. Like I said,
I agree with you. That scene was probably the worst part of the movie, just in terms of.
I was eye-rollingly terrible.
It didn't really work, but it didn't ruin the movie for me at all.
It did. I was bored, and then it was that was bad. Now I'll give you the rest of the movie. I was bored. It wasn't bad. That was bad. Now, the best scene in the entire movie was the 5-second scene with Stan Lee. It had the best action, and it was the only funny part of the entire movie. It cuts to a scene where Peter Parker and Lizard are fighting in the school, and Stan Lee's like the librarian, and he's wearing these big giant headphones with music blasting, and the Lizard and Spider-Man come crashing through the door. They're tussling while Stan Lee's just like sitting here dancing at the screen, and then he walks off and they leave. It was a funny scene, and that was the only action in the entire movie that I liked. That 5-second scene was the best action in the movie. And I have to say before, Brock, you can counter all you want, the Lizard looked awful.
I already said he looked like
I'm just saying.
Bug. I'm agreeing with you that
terrible.
That the movie it wasn't spectacular. It wasn't amazing.
He looked
It was
terrible.
a good movie.
Okay, I'm telling you, the main villain he looked worse than Osborn in the first Spider-Man movie. He looked worse than Sandman or Venom. I mean, he looked awful.
But the thing is, they were going for a more realistic look.
He looked unrealistic as hell. The CG was terrible. It was the worst villain I've seen in a comic book movie in any sort of recent memory.
See, to me, this is
the worst major actual comic book villain I've seen. And like it is Doom bad. Okay, it is Doom from Fantastic Four bad. Is how bad Lizard was in this. And Doom is fucking awful.
So, for me, the bottom line is the original Spider-Man movies were a love letter to old school Spider-Man fans.
Yep.
This movie was more about trying to have a wider mass appeal, and there's a few things about it I actually applaud them for, and I'm really glad they did. Web shooters. Mm-hmm. Gotta love the web shooters.
Agreed. Like them.
And I like Peter Parker in high school.
I did too. I had no problem with the actor. I liked him actually being in high school.
Yeah.
Totally fine with that.
So, I mean,
there's just not enough action in the movie for you.
I like Gwen Stacy. I hated the parents at first, but I now don't really care.
We're still confused on your only reason is you say it's boring.
It is boring.
And you say it there was not enough action.
There was not enough action.
Okay.
So, I guess my biggest issue with this movie, and it's just, I know they're going to do another one. I'm fine with the fact they're doing another one. Not excited for another one.
And so at the very end, after the credits...
Well, no, after the initial credits, before the roll.
Right. Mm-hmm. They have Lizard in a random...
They have Dr. Kirk Connors.
They have Lizard randomly...
Dr. Kirk Connors.
They have Lizard randomly in a jail cell somewhere, and mysterious figure walks up to him, says something, and leaves. Where's the thing? That was the saving grace. That was the chance. That was the chance for the fishbowl head of Mysterio to pop up and be like, we must teach Peter Parker that with great power comes great responsibility, which they don't fucking say in the movie either, which pissed me off.
Mr. Fishbowl had said that, I would have walked out of the movie.
Whatever. If Norman Osborn came out, if Green Goblin came out, anyone.
That's the thing.
Who was this? It was no one. Like
we don't know yet. That's what the next film is supposed to be about.
I need my Thanos moment. See,
now you're throwing expectations out when you said you didn't have any expectations.
Here's my issue.
That was afterwards.
With that scene and with the whole general movie, I guess, sort of, is I liked everything to do with Peter Parker. I liked everything to do with Gwen Stacy. I kind of was choosing to overlook everything that had to do with Peter's parents.
Yeah, I mean, it's from the comics. I don't care. It's from they've always had Peter Parker's parents being something. Whatever. I
have no problem with them being something. I have a problem with my Peter Parker never really seemed like he came from any kind of a broken home.
Yeah.
He never really came across as didn't have a loving, supportive, like he had questions about his parents, but he never really
it was almost as if they were teetering on the line of it being a hating Christian kind of thing. Was that what you're getting at? Anakin. Right. Because that's what Hating Christian played the perfect character in Life as a House, and he played the same exact character as Anakin Skywalker, which ruined Anakin Skywalker.
But for me, what it really kind of came down to is the scenes where it's the good, loving family with Aunt May and Uncle Ben and everything seems as it should be worked for me. But the more he kind of, like, I don't even mind him having stuff left over from his dad and looking for a connection there. I minded the more he seemed tormented by the fact his parents left.
Yeah. That there was some of those moments in the attempt to have character development that I think they fell short.
Yeah. And because that's what this trilogy seems to be about, it kills my excitement for the idea of a trilogy.
Yeah.
So we got to wrap up here, but I have to ask one more question, and I'm like, I guess I'm just in hater mode because it's a question that I could nitpick probably Green Lantern. You guys nitpick Green Lantern and all the other movies I like the same way, so I'll nitpick this back. Why the hell did the lizard turn everyone into lizards? And then why didn't we see anyone actually do anything as lizards? Like, she's like, oh, I'm going to turn everyone, they totally telegraphed this thing that can release the virus over the city.
The lizard was always content being the lizard. The lizard, never went, I want to turn back to Kurt Connors. It was always this sort of, I've evolved to this greater number, and a lot of the tragedy there kind of has to do with the fact that Kurt Connors doesn't want to be the lizard.
Right.
Peter Parker wants to help Kurt Connors be Kurt Connors, and that unfortunately didn't really come across in this movie.
Because he's just like, I'm going to take this thing that I talked about earlier in the movie and turn people into lizards for no reason.
I want to evolve humankind to be me.
Yeah. But then they show like 2 cops turn into lizards, and then they show them not turn into lizards. Where was the scene where 50,000 lizard men were attacking New York City?
We're not watching the cops turn into lizard
no
movie.
Action. Only action.
I agree with you. There should have been some ramifications to the fact that he was at least have had something more sightings of lizards, making it hard. So Peter Parker's the only one who knew where he was actually going.
Yeah,
that would have helped it along a little bit. But,
I just nitpicking, just asking, just asking questions.
It's just,
I think
it has its flaws, but I overall enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I just think it's a shame that the trilogy is probably the one aspect of the movie I didn't enjoy is the thing they're most excited to explore. And
I want to watch it again just to go in and be like, okay, maybe I was just in a bad mood when I saw this and watched it again. But
I mean, I did the same thing with Green Lantern. I watched it again, but I had the same kind of thing. And that, I mean, even watching the extended version, it didn't do anything for me.
Yeah,
and I mean,
happens.
The movies can have a saving grace a second time around. You know, sometimes. I mean, I for one watched Matrix the first time and hated it.
Yeah,
and then I watched Matrix again. Because Matrix had come out and it was one of those first movies that actually made you think and asked you questions directly, because the movies hadn't done that in a long time. And so I was like, what the fuck is this movie trying to do to me? But then I watched it again and I fucking love the movie. So, but this is the question. There's one question I want to know if it's on your guys' minds too. What the fuck happens to that rat? I mean,
the
seriously.
lizard rat?
Yeah.
What happens to it? I mean, that thing was creepy as fuck. I was like,
it's going to be the thing that pops up in every movie in the background of some scene.
Nice. And then at the end, he'll turn into Splinter.
Yeah.
Oh.
No. I don't know. I just lost my train of thought there, but that's okay.
That's all right. We got to wrap up anyway.
I mean, I think people ask, the question is, should I see this in the theater?
Sure, absolutely.
Sure,
It's a comic movie. Go support it.
For me, it doesn't have, like you said, it doesn't have enough action. It's not enough eye candy for me to do that. But
look,
should it have had more high school eye candy for you?
Oh yeah, man! Just
honestly,
schoolgirls.
Spider-Man 3 is bad. X-Men 3 is bad. Fantastic Four 1 and 2 are bad. Daredevil's bad. Okay, so let's just get that out of the way, right? These movies are bad.
Oh, don't bury yourself.
Okay,
What?
I figured out what I was going to say.
Oh, go for it.
I feel like after seeing Amazing Spider-Man, I'm okay. It's not the kind of movie that I see watching over and over and over.
No. Now will you own Blu-ray?
You know me. If it's cheap, I'll probably buy it.
So, to me, this kind of falls more like in Superman Returns, where I like Superman Returns when I watched it, but going back watching it a second, third time, I'm just like, man, I'm really bored during this movie. There's some scenes that are good, but overall, I'm just like, eh.
Yeah.
And it's like, and this falls into that where boring is worse than bad to me. So, like, Ghost Rider Spirits of Vengeance, fucking terrible movie. Hilarious. I love it. It's awful, but I love it.
People for the longest time gave me so much shit because I never really enjoyed Empire. And people looked at me funny, like, because the middle of that movie bored the shit out of me.
I don't know what Empire is. Oh, like Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, like Empire Strikes Back. I loved Hoth.
Like, we're going to end this podcast right now before you really put your foot in your mouth. So
I'm just too busy going, if we open up this can of worms, it will be the longest.
I was like, my brain was like, he can't possibly be talking about Empire Strikes Back, so there must be another movie called Empire that I don't know.
It honestly, the middle of that movie bored me. It bored me, and I love Hoth, and I love the end of that movie, but I could literally skip all the stuff in between. Of course, after he meets Yoda, because that's fucking hilarious as shit. Yeah. But all the training and all the stuff with Han and Leia and the worm, and it just
stop.
It just bored me.
Just stop. Just stop.
Why?
Just stop.
Just outro this fucker.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, if you want to yell at us, go to forums.geekbox.net where you can find the thread about this forum, or the thread about this episode. You can also go to www.geekbox.net where you can find this episode and all our other episodes. I think Charlie wants to say something.
I was just going to say, you can yell at them all you want. I won't be anywhere near to check the threads this week.
Yeah, you'll be in San Diego. Have fun with that. You can go to comicsconspiracy.biz, where it's the website for the store, as well as the website you want to order. You got a couple days left to order your Walking Dead number 100 full complete sets. There's a link on there, so you can buy all those from PayPal through us. We'll ship them out. It's good times. Go to conspiratorbrock.com. Mm-hmm. You can go to Brock's blog. Go to the Infinite Long Box podcast. Use like infinitelongbox.com. Is that, you guys have a site up, right? Or is it on?
It's still on the Libsyn site.
Oh, it's still on Libsyn. Okay. But you can find it on iTunes, Infinite Long Box. Comics at the Kind, that's Omar's site. Omar hopefully should be joining us next week if he survives San Diego. We're all on Twitters. I'm Ryan Higgins Ryan. Brock Sager. Comics at the Kind is Omar. Toby XI is Toby. Insanity in Chaos is Charlie. The Comic Conspiracy at geekbox.net. That's the email. You could send us some emails. We've been bad about reading emails. I've got a few I need to actually sit down and read instead of doing this Twitter thing. We'll sit down and read some of those probably 2 weeks, because next week's San Diego. It's going to be a lot to talk about. I don't know. Go yell at us about how much you love Spider-Man and how bad I am.
If you're in the South Bay on Tuesday, we're having our Walking Dead party.
Yes, 6 o'clock till late. So stop by.
What's the date today?
Today is the 7th.
Today's the 7th.
This is going up on the 9th.
Are you going to wait for it to put it up?
It's going up on Monday.
Throw it up tomorrow?
No, it's going up on Monday.
Man, we're so close to the Dark Knight Rises.
I know. We'll have like a Comic-Con podcast and then like a Dark Knight podcast like right after. It's going to be crazy. So, all right, we'll catch everyone next week.